Well, as you can see here, I've got just a basic sketch, and I went ahead and put some clear gel and white on the top and bottom, although my brush was kind of dirty, plus it mixed with some of my sketch, but that's okay. We got a little bit of thin paint up there and there, and the rest of this I just used the filbert brush to create a basic kind of line drawing that we can use. It's going to be really pretty with a lot of these kind of beautiful golden rusty colors. I think it's going to be rusty painting today. Should be interesting. All right, so we've got that going right here. That rusty palette. All right, let's go right here. Set that brush down and start to just create some clouds. I know what you're thinking. Oh, this is off to a bad start. Well, no, not necessarily. Watch this. We're gonna build out our sky a little differently. I'm gonna build it out just a little differently because I do want some blue in here. A little bit of blue. No, I don't wanna risk green, but I want a little blue. So we'll work on that here in a moment. But there we go. See, I like that kind of burnt or kind of like, rusty colors that I was talking about. Very pretty. All right, hey, we should also look at the paintings that you guys did in my last one. Of course, if you want to be featured in the next video, use the hashtag on the screen or tag me on that special Facebook page, post it on the special Facebook page, and we'll get it in the next video if we see it in time. Well, now I've got a blue. I'll definitely make it a little purple here, just enough to be safe. Rather be safe than sorry. So I still will read blue when you put it up with the rest of the colors. It's a little bit on the warm side. I think it'll still look blue enough. Oh yeah, it definitely looks blue enough. There. Okay, it's got a little purple in it. It's just enough. Just enough, because there's a lot of, let's face it, there's a lot of yellow. That's great. You see, I'm just working it around gently, kind of, hey, understanding that things can get out of hand when you do this. So you got to be a little bit careful. It's worth it. It's worth taking that extra time. Now, it's so pretty to have this blue. You may be wondering, well, what's the point? Well, it's so pretty to have this blue contrasting, or the kind of purpley blue, contrasting against the warm, very warm colors. And it's going to make a lot of sense in the painting. It's going to help to offset some of the colors. So it's worth it. All right, that's enough of the blue. I'm going to switch to more of a purpley tone. There it is. I found it. And I'm going to place in some of this purpley tone and kind of integrate it here into the clouds a bit. And even use this to blend, because you see the yellow and the purple, as long as it's got enough red in your purple, it'll make brown. And it makes for a very pretty kind of a muted brown. It's not an ugly or weird color at all. It's very pretty. The yellow and the purple together, they make a very pretty brown. Anyway, I'm going on about that. My point is, it totally works in the sky. Don't be afraid of that color. It will not make it look muddy. It just makes it look nice. Now, if you've ever painted with me before, you know what's coming. We have got to remove a lot of this slippery wet paint. Yeah, I did leave my tree open, but I've got a lot of other stuff that needs to come on here. Come on top of this, I mean. So we gotta get it off. That's the point. We've got to get this paint off. You put it on and you take it off. But that's okay, because all that we care about is the stain that's left over on the canvas. You can reuse those. Usually you can kind of flatten those shop towels. I'm using shop towels. Usually you can flatten them back out and wipe your brushes on them so you don't have to waste them. But this works out really good. Oh, wow. So I'm just removing that paint. And almost, let's be fair, I'm kind of painting a little bit with my shop towel. Just refining any areas that I might want to. Kind of an additional step that you may be able to use instead of blending. For instance, I know I want a lighter spot here, so I'm going to remove the paint rather than glopping on a bunch of white. I'll just remove the paint and allow that stained canvas to be my lighter area. It's pretty, very pretty. And this way you won't create mud, because let's face it, if you've ever painted with oils all in one day without letting them dry, you've probably mixed mud. We all have. Oh, we all have. This is how you avoid it. This is the easy way to avoid it. I mean, there are probably other ways. This is the easiest way I've ever found to avoid mixing mud, is just wipe the paint off the canvas. Well, now I've got a green, kind of just a random green mixed up. The reason there's so much of it, I just took my palette knife and scraped up everything, threw it in one pile and said, well, there you go. So let's go ahead and get us in our trees here. This yellow line indicates what is my grass. These are, of course, my evergreen trees. I need to be careful only to do kind of the bottom. And I can't speak. I'm going to get in here with my little detail brush and do the rest. So just, like I said, just doing the bottoms. And there we go. That's pretty decent. See that? Run that along there, run it along there. Yeah, that's all good. That is all good. Pull up just the beginning stages of some trees. Now, before I go too far, here's something very, very important. Take some yellow, white. I already need more white. And I'm going to just, right here in the sun area, I'm just going to pull up with this kind of golden color to start with, because that way when I do my details on top, they'll already be the right color. Now we're going to make these trees look a lot better by refining the top of the tree with a detail brush. The reason, of course, you wouldn't do this to the entire tree, it would just take forever. You'd be here all day doing thousands of brush strokes, and it's completely not necessary. So there you go. Now, I will say, I think it looks like we're going to have some really decent little like autumn colored trees in there. So we'll probably have to wipe the canvas off. But I do want to just get these last couple, and these are probably less important right here because of the tree limbs and whatnot over top of this. From the tree, that's in the foreground. It does help to plan your painting so that you know what is going to be covered and what's not going to be covered, and you can save yourself some amount of time. Not always a lot of time, but sometimes it adds up. It just depends. That looks pretty good. It looks really decent. Now, we need to figure out a reflection here. So I'm going to take just, this is just a 3/4 flat brush with a little bit of white I've got left. Just replicating some of these colors and some of these shapes I'm going to pull down. I'm not looking for a perfect reflection in any way, but I do want it to look sort of similar. So I've had these little scraps of the shop towel up here for, I don't know, 20 minutes, maybe longer actually, when took a little break. So now, see what that's done is, it's without destroying any of my texture here, without changing the trees or smushing them around, it's just simply absorbed the oil out of them so that I can highlight. So that's what we're gonna do, we're gonna highlight. So I've got that nice mix of orange right there. And we're going to place on literally just a few trees, not too many. Some of these kind of pretty bright little autumn trees. Oh, that's good stuff. It doesn't need to be super extravagant, I'd say, but wow. So let me guess, maybe it's probably closer to even a half an hour that I left that shop towel on. Like I said, I took a break for a little while, longer than I was actually thinking I would. So it's acting as though it's virtually a dry canvas. And it certainly is easy. Well, now I'm going to take actually the very same orange color that we used just a moment ago on the trees, and I'm going to place just some, not a lot, but just some, in what's going to end up being grass. Figure, hey, let's go ahead and get this going. Why not? Will some of this need to be finished with a liner brush? Yeah, most likely it will. There, looks pretty good. And then, well, you know what? Don't do too much of that yet. Actually, wait, hold off on that. Pulling down. Let's go ahead and there's a little more. With doing a lot of grass in a painting, it can take forever. So this will help a lot. This is the very same color we had on the trees. I'm just recycling it. Well, it's not as dark as possible. You'll notice that is not black. There's black there. It's not quite black. And what that allows me to do is it allows me to get darker grass on top. I've got somewhere to go. Well, next I'm going to take some brown, black. Actually, let's just mix together a little bit of everything. It doesn't need to be any specific color, just dark. A little blue in there won't hurt as long as there's red to counteract it. Let's go ahead and paint in just a lot of this. This is going to be rocks and grass and just about anything else you want it to be. Probably some leaves that have fallen down. Definitely leaves that have fallen down. Just stuff. Not a lot of grass. The tall grass is more over here toward the river or the pond or lake, whatever you want this to be. I kind of tend to let my viewers just kind of come up with, whatever they think it is, and whatever they say it is, I go, yep, that's what we meant to do, right? That's great. So now I'm going to take, again, kind of just a mix of everything dark. It looks pretty good. And there's some black in there. It looks basically black, but there's other colors too. Doesn't really make a whole lot of difference for this painting, but we're gonna start right up here with this blank area. It does help to keep it blank because then you can kind of see where you want it, number one. Number two, you don't have to fight that. You don't have to fight that light, white and yellow, just all that stuff, trying to make this thing lighter. Now it'll stay nice and dark the way you want it to. So there you go. Oh, that looks good, doesn't it? Really, really high contrast. You see, you get a lot more impact in your painting when you do high contrast. High contrast makes a big difference. So we're gonna definitely embrace this high contrast in this painting. So you see that lake is very light in color, very, very light. And it contrasts well against this very, very dark tree. Make that bigger. See, I want this to really dominate the foreground. See that? Well, we could have it split, actually. Let's do that. Let's do that. Just for the sake of variety, let's make it split. There we go. Oh, yeah, look at that. Oh, that's good stuff right there. I like the way that looks. Definitely like the way that looks. A little bigger yet. Yes. Yes, you always go small with your trees and then bigger. You don't just make them huge to begin with, because then you may want to make them smaller, and that's much harder. So there. Nice and dark. How about a limb? Now you can do a lot of your limbs with your filbert brush. You can do them with a 1/4" brush, something like that. It's just whatever you're more comfortable with. But here we go. Right here, a nice limb. For a limb of this size, the filbert brush is really perfect. Kind of get it to a bit of a chisel edge, although you see I am rolling that brush around as well. So, oh yeah. Now I realize this is a very odd time for the liner brush, but here's my thought behind it. We don't have a great deal of stuff going to be covering this grass, but we do have some limbs on the left side that is going to cover the grass, and I don't want to cause any problems with me trying to paint around my evergreen tree. So I'm going to do these first. I've got such little paint here in the background. I've been wiping it off. I wiped off this area, and then we did this, and then I kind of smudged it in. So you can see there's very, very little, virtually no paint to deal with here. And what that allows me to do is use a very sparing amount on the liner brush. In fact, look at my palette here. It's not even all that thin. See that? Just that brown. Not all that thin. So I'm not going to have any worries about if I want to change anything up in here. I can. So normally I don't usually do the liner brush until the very end, but today I'm making an exception, and hopefully that kind of explains why. There. I'm done kind of blending out my black area. You'll notice that it looks a little darker than black. You know, it's like the darkest possible. Well, see, it's only, the color's the same. The only thing I did was blend it with the blender brush. What that does is it smooths out the texture, and my light doesn't reflect off of it, making it look like a light gray. So that's one tip. I mean, it's more for me than it probably is for you. But if it's something that you're working with strong lighting, you may want to do that. So anyway, just a tip. So smooth out your areas that are dark. They'll look darker. All right, so now I'm going to take, this is just the 3/4 flat brush. I just want to create a little moss on this area. And I went ahead and put a little more paint down. So there's a fairly heavy coat of paint down here. And then I smoothed it out as well, make it look super dark. The reason that I emphasize that more in this painting is because this painting is very much about the contrast. And I want to get my darks as dark as possible. Sometimes, most of the time, I don't care as much, but I've got larger patches of dark than normal. Oh, that's good. We're going to have a little tree root here, which I'm just going to indicate, even with my little moss color. Oh yeah, that's great. Keep this foreground dark. If this gets too bright and out of hand, it's going to lose its impact. So now I've got some nice thin paint on the liner brush. Again, this is very, very dark. And you can see I put in a stump here, and I'm going to go ahead and add in some detailed tree limbs to the stump. Not anything so advanced that it kind of takes away from the painting, but just a few. And you'll notice that it makes it a little better. It makes it just that much more interesting, I'd say. Thin that paint down just a little more. Ooh, it's starting to run like crazy. You want it about as thin as ink, maybe a little thicker than that. Just depends on how much paint you have in the background. The more paint you have in the background, the more you're going to have to thin down the liner brush paint. So it's just very much dependent on how much you have down. But these branches need to have some character. See this? If they have a little more character, it'll be significantly more interesting. Let's also jump back and forth kind of in between these trees here as well, these limbs. Excellent. Look at this. Good character. This tree is, again, silhouetted against that sky. Now, you can do more leaves if you want to. I just stamped the leaves on very rapidly with a 1-inch brush, of all things. It worked out okay. You can add some more leaves with the detail brush like we normally do, if you like. If you don't want to, you don't have to. You can leave it kind of just this way. Ooh, that's nice. Now I'm going to get a very dark highlight color, and I'm just going to place in a few little leaves here toward the bottom. They look like little shrubs and stuff. Some of that light is kind of sneaking through. Not a great deal. Just here and there. If you go overboard, it'll be too much, but it's kind of a globby there. Just enough to sprinkle in a little color, a little life. I don't want to change the feel of it too much. But, here's what I'm going to do. I'm targeting them as I stand back and I kind of squint my eyes. I'm targeting the areas that are a little solid. If it feels just a little solid, a little weird, anything needs a little help, this is where this sort of stuff goes. Oh, it really changes it just enough. Just enough. Subtle. Subtle. That's what we want. That is, to me, the key to this painting is subtle. Just a little in here, not too much. We're going to lose that contrast. But it helps just to have a little color. Well, when you're doing your version, you can certainly leave this step out. It appears a little blank, so let's put some of that in there. It's completely up to you. And then on this one, I think I'm going to leave it. It's an evergreen. It's darker. I'm not really going to mess with it, I don't think. Just enough. Well, that about wraps up this high contrast landscape painting. It was a little different, but I enjoyed using fewer colors and a lot of dark tones contrasting against the light tones. Hopefully you enjoyed seeing it. Don't forget to check out our website, DVDs, and brush line. Thanks for watching. Well, hopefully you enjoyed this video. Remember to subscribe if you're not already, and click the like button. It helps me out a lot. Stick around, watch a couple more videos, and stay inspired.